Welcome, everybody. My name is Joshua Denny. I have the honor and privilege of hosting this morning's webinar. This is going to be the first of the webinars we're going to have this week for this exclusive group as we launch on Monday, August the 2nd. So I suspect the person who invited you here is pretty excited, and they have good reason to be. We're going to share with you exactly why they're excited and what's in it for you. This is the timeline, who we are, what we're doing, where we're going, and how you can participate, and what that's going to look like for you. We know that most of the people that are being invited to look at this are market makers, people who have done extraordinarily well in their respective fields. And so a lot of respect for those of you that are on. We want to respect your time, so we're going to go really quick. But it's going to be a firehouse. It's going to be a lot of information very fast. We are going to save time for questions at the end, and we'll get to them right at the end. So I'm gonna get myself out of the way. Without further ado, I want to introduce my good friend, co-founder and CEO of Meta, Mr. Chris Snook. Now he's been a serial technologist since 1999. Been in the business a long time. Really understands the blockchain space. He's a best-selling author of Digital Sense. He's been asked to speak at the U.S. Capitol for the second straight year in a row, talking about money, governance, and the law. He is one of the smartest guys I know, but more importantly than that, he's a good friend. He's a man of integrity and someone that I feel incredibly confident to have at the helm of this company. So with that said, Mr. Chris Snook, please take the floor.
Appreciate you, man. Let's get right after it. So as Josh said, we are here of the Alpha Phase Partner Preview. You're here, if you're new, you're here because someone that we respect and that we know is a proven market maker in the field of direct marketing, influencer marketing, or affiliate marketing has been invited to see this in advance of the official launch on Monday. You're going to find out exactly how you can participate in Monday's launch call. There is a limited space of about 1,000 seats on that call. There's a limited space on that call, but you'll be able to participate in that by just going to register for free at alpha.mymetacloud.com. I'm going to fly through some information here to the best of my ability and pack 10 pounds of sausage in a 5-pound bag, as many people hear me say a lot. We're going to talk about the company and what we're doing and why we think it matters. We're going to talk about the trillion-dollar industry that we are sitting on the crest of the wave of and that we're going to help enable. And then we'll talk about our leadership team and our product roadmap, and most importantly, the ways that we envision you can participate. So if you're seeing about this, the good news is you're on time. The good news is you've got a little bit of a head start. And what you do with that head start is up to you. But we're going to really encourage you that you take the advantage that you have, which is to put as much momentum of your organization. If what you hear today makes sense to you, and I think that it's going to give you the chance to really hit it hard on Monday and have as many people on that launch call for the Alpha Phase as possible. We'll talk about products and conversation and tools available. And then again, we'll remind you on what we told you. So at SDKco, who do we exist for and why? We build technologies powering personal choice. We think this matters more than ever today. Some of the questions we like to ask, I thought about this on the way in this morning, is, just because we can build something in technology, should we? And then more importantly, while we can build new architectures, must we? And these are the things that get us out of bed every morning, because we have to reinvent our relationship technology. Technology is a wonderful servant, but it is a dangerous master. And we have moved into, we have moved into a world where my computer is taking my life away, so apologies for that. Anyway, we've moved into a world where it's becoming more and more our master and less in our control. And so we believe at the core that people should be that they're inherently free, and they should be able to choose the level of consent that they have in the larger ecosystems that they participate in. And we believe you deserve that choice, and we believe that you could help us empower people to be aware that that choice exists now. Because the reality is that as we've moved through Web 1 and 2 and 3, which we'll talk about in a short history lesson here, we've got ourselves on the precipice of $1 trillion remonetization, which is really exciting. And yet the systems that kind of got us here are not the systems that are going to take us where we need to go next. And as a matter of fact, they could fundamentally take us in the wrong direction. faster than ever before. And I think we're witnessing that and we're feeling that at scale in mass society today. And so the timing of this message is going to resonate with most of the people on this line, but it's also going to resonate with the people that ultimately will be your customers and your DMP, decentralized marketing partners inside of your organization. So in 1999, when we were in Web 1.0, and it was a readable web where we could basically just consume stuff, and we liberated information into what was known as the information age, 10 years after kind of the Berlin Wall fell down, what happened was this promise of taking down walled gardens became real. And unfortunately, there wasn't really a great business model for that. And so as many of us remember or have heard about, there was this dot-com bubble, right? And it burst. And then in the early 00s, the impacts of that were felt. And then new architectures and new business models started to emerge. But really, it was more of the same, meaning we went right back to kind of what we understood, which was an advertising-based business model, except now we could weaponize it in levels that we had never been able to do before. So when we digitized content, we essentially did something more than that. What we did was, for the first time, we were arbitraging bits and atoms, right? We were taking physical things that used to have to buy on CDs and that had kind of scarce things and could be owned, and then we digitized them. We turned them into bits instead of atoms, and they were more fluid, and they ran across the cyber world as ether, right? Essentially, and they became accessible. And you didn't necessarily have to own them anymore. And so we stopped buying music. We stopped buying the same level of things that we did before. And as we dematerialized these physical things, we brought in access and we democratized the ability to publish these things. And those benefits were real. And at the same time, they completely demonetized several legacy industries. And they really disrupted a lot of things in the way that businesses were formed and legacy institutions were built. And we went through the worst crisis in financial history right around the middle of that time. And as that was happening, free felt really good because, quite frankly, free was about all most people could afford in 08. And yet at the same time, free wasn't free. It just felt like free. And what we were paying for with it was a commodity we didn't fully understand, because although we had given out our name and our address and postcards and things like that before, in an analog world, that's kind of where it stopped. And that lead either got called or it didn't. But it wasn't mined into and the metadata around that wasn't mined into the levels that it could be today. And as the iPhone came out in 07, and then that whole platform of essentially mobile social web in Web 2.0, where now we had this readable and writable web where we could interact and user-generated content could be continued at scale amongst communities of common interest. As that happened, it was interesting and exciting at first. And the possibilities seemed really interesting as it related to the ability to now become a channel of your own. But there was an underlying piece of that architecture that made certain companies really, really, really rich, but essentially created bigger walled gardens than we had before the internet. And that's where we sit today. And so the business model of big tech and the unintended consequences of milking that business model to death are what we face today. And they're real and they're dangerous. And there's a chance to do something about it, because in 2008, many of you know, if you followed cryptocurrency at all, or if you've been in the mainstream media, you've heard of Bitcoin. But Satoshi, whoever they may be, wrote a white paper that really brought this concept of distributed ledger technology and blockchain specifically into a use case that became globally massive. And we're now 13 years in a post-Satoshi white paper world. And because of that, we've now got platforms, whether it be Cardano, who we'll talk about in a little bit, or Ethereum, or some of these names you may have heard, that are now enabling a whole new decentralized web. And the possibilities that are remonetizing the exact industries that got demonetized 20, 30 years ago, while they simultaneously move the legacy institutions of banking and finance and insurance and things like that into a demonetization cycle of their own. And at the forefront of this is going to be the largest transfer of wealth in the history of humanity. And it is going to be a global transfer of wealth and power. And this is the opportunity for human beings with new architecture to benefit from that and to, before the cement is wet, put their footprint and their handprint in it and hopefully set the trajectory of the next 100 years in a better direction than the last 100 years, and to continue to move our experience as humanity forward. And this is your opportunity, because essentially what we're talking about for these webinars and leading up into Alpha and what we're doing as a business is we are building the architecture, and we have built an OS, an operating system that has been custom built to make the peer-to-peer digitally enabled blockchain economy viable for the masses. And so what it looks like is what we call a peer-to-peer market network, right? On one side, you have a market of everything from digital goods and virtual employment and user-generated content and a bunch more of these DeFi services that can be offered the same way that you have things that are available to you now in your current operating systems, right? But on the other side of this, instead of having users that do not own and control their identity anymore, which is what is existing right now, and we'll talk about that more in a second, you have users that are reclaiming dominion over their data, reclaiming dominion over their encryption, and that are basically acting on their own behest in a portable decentralized identity that they own and control, only them, but that's anchored to a $50 billion public immutable blockchain ledger where it cannot be tampered with. And so as that becomes verifiable and as that interoperates with other systems of identification, government, non-government, other blockchains, other things, you now get to build an identity in the digital physical world, or what we call the metaverse, across these planes, where you own physical assets and digital assets to yourself. And you have what's called personal agency and principal authority over how that data is used or when it's used. And when it's used, you get to actually participate in an equitable monetization of that for the first time. And we call those things income opportunities, not just the ability to build a business with us as part of our peer-to-peer decentralized marketing partner organization. And underneath it all is our OS, which handles digital trust layer and the security and the meta ID on Cardano and the content services and multiple partner integrations so that mymetashop.com becomes the first and largest decentralized marketplace or app store, as you might know it, and you get to participate as both a consumer and a referrer of services in there, monetizing every aspect of that channel as users on board in through your organization. So the key problem that we solve when we just talk about the icebreaker is simple questions that we ask people like, do you own your device or does it own you? Because most people think they own their device, so they haven't thought about it at all, quite frankly. And when they think about it at first, they'll go, well, I'm holding it in my hand. I think I own it, but you're asking me the question because maybe I don't. What do you mean? And that becomes an icebreaker to say, well, when you took possession of that device, it probably made you set up an ID, right? You had to set up an Apple ID or you had to use your Gmail, didn't you? And they're going to say, uh-huh. And you say, well, the minute you did that, is Apple your identity or is Google your identity? And they're going to go, well, I don't think so, because in their mind, they're going, no, I'm me. But then they're starting to really understand the reach and the power of this, right? Facebook Connect was a way to reach into every network we had, or edge networks as we call them, that was not on Facebook, using Facebook's identity credential as our verification to log in. And when they did that, their terms and conditions gave access to that metadata outside of Facebook in our life, and they could reach into our edge networks and monetize even further their micro-targeting ad engine. And so Facebook ID and Apple ID and Amazon ID, these things have become us. And yet we don't control any of it. We don't have the right to say when or where it's decrypted or where or when it's sold. We don't monetize any part of that equation. And yet it's more valuable than ever because you have $5 trillion companies today for the first time in human history, and they're all tech companies. 20 years ago, the largest 5 companies in the world were oil companies. So if data is the new oil, and you and I, according to Cisco, in 2018, as humanity, don't have a more recent stat, working on one, but in 2018, 400 zettabytes of data exhaust was the number across the humanity surface. So 7.8 billion people, 400 zettabytes of data. To put that in context, every human being on this planet in 2018 kicked off 10 gigabytes of waste of data exhaust that was not mined or not done, but could have been, that was collected every 10 minutes in a 24/7 day, 365. Now, if that number was 10 gigabytes for every 10 minutes in a 24/7 day in 2018, it's exponentially higher today. And none of you and none of me are making any money off of that. And we should be, right? Now, in order for that to be possible, the entire ecosystem has to be rebuilt and rethought around a user-centric or a human-centric model. And so that's what we've architected with Meta OS. Millions of new Meta IDs that you'll help onboard. Organizations, humans, consumers, digital collectibles, everything being able to then connect to that in an interoperable way that's portable, so that that end user that you bring into the system actually has the utility that's inside and outside of the devices that we bring them. That's just the gateway. And you'll earn commissions and royalties and rewards because we pay globally and because we're built on top of Cardano via smart contract once we get out of our beta and into full launch in ADA that is easily convertible to the fiats of the world and other major cryptos through our back-end office. And so if that sounds interesting to you, you say, well, who's behind this? And how can I feel good about this? And if you're new today, some of these names won't mean anything to you yet, but what I will tell you is, between Joshua Denny and Troy Curl and the sales side of this team, I think there's over $20 billion worth of volume generated in direct marketing in the last decade alone, with over $200 million paid out in commissions between the people in this leadership team. Now, when we talk about on the marketing side with Jeffrey Swerk, we've got brands from MasterCard, where he headed up consumer marketing for North America as well as global before COVID, most recently at Triller before coming on board as our CMO here July 1. The rest of our leadership team, Rich Kopjo, our co-founder and COO, has been in technology since the 80s, starting with Advanced Energy, got acquired out of Colorado Memory Systems after that by HP, spent a decade there, and was partly responsible for backing up all the financial district when the towers fell in 2001. And then the rest of the team, Ron and Mr. Wendell, deep connections into Hollywood and licensing and brands, and 29 Grammys between them, and a bunch of hit shows and a bunch of celebrity relationships that are working on our brand partnerships and content publishing services. And then Larry Beck and the rest of our IT and global innovation team comes out of the Fortune 100, Fortune 500 with experience running InfoSec and consumer marketing and communications for companies as big as Qualcomm, Goldman Sachs, Sony, and the like. And so where we are in time is we're right here. You're 48 hours away from a Sunday break and then a Monday launch date for the alpha phase. What that means is we're going to go into a pre-enrollment period that's absolutely free, but where your replicated sites will be up. You'll be able to onboard people. You'll be able to start to structure your group out and go like heck to get as many of your contacts in front of this information and locked in with a secure spot between August 2nd and the 15th. And then right around the 15th, we will take the $99 membership fee for the DMP opportunity to lock them in and get their full asset package of all the marketing tools and all the infrastructure and unlock the full comp plan and all that goodness. And then we'll be starting to accrue commissions as we take deposits on the first products, and then those deposits will be paid in full right before the product ships. And then we'll go into our beta launch with about 5,000 to 10,000 customers that are getting their phones and now DMPing themselves, getting out there with the message and marketing this alongside them, building a check. And then in November through the end of the year, we'll have a couple new announcements that we'll do that'll be exclusive drops and things like that that'll add to your quiver of things that you can market and sell that build out the ecosystem. And then in Dubai, February 28th through the 3rd, our global launch in partnership with and during the Expo 2020 Dubai, which is the World's Fair happening in Dubai. And this is the final week of that we will be launching. When you think about us, you should be thinking about not just one thing or devices or things like that. Think about a technology architecture and an operating system that essentially enables a whole new ecosystem. And an ecosystem is much like any other ecological event. It's built with a bunch of different actors, but at the end of the day, it's things that are connected and living and thriving amongst each other in a healthy environment. And Meta Network is that environment. And the brand and DApp marketing opportunities that happen on top of that environment are anchored by the secure identity anchored into the Cardano blockchain. Not a blockchain that has to be built, not a blockchain that doesn't have a name, a top 5 blockchain with over 100 peer-reviewed research papers on its cryptography and its security. And so when your Meta ID and your customer's Meta ID is verifiable, it's verifiable on one of the best blockchains on the planet. And then when those smart contracts are paid, they're being paid without gas fees through the new coming out Alonzo hard fork methodology of Cardano. So there'll be efficient transfer of fluid capital. There'll be efficient security and stability to the data and the metadata layers. And then the opportunities and the brand marketing opportunities that will provide you through your My Meta Shop store will be abundant. And so some of the partner network to understand we've already got in place is listed on this slide. We'll be announcing more. And this is an ecosystem play. So the two ways that you can participate are: one, as a preferred customer, which is where you're going to be able to purchase our products and services from a DMP, and you'll be able to get that at a 20% discount and earn up to 15% credits on a referral link that we give you. Regardless of whether they join the business side of the deal or not, they will become a source of potential increased revenue for you as a DMP, because every time they share a link, they'll get at least 15% credit on a minimum if someone buys from their link, but you'll get the overrides as a decentralized marketing partner who's opted into that opportunity. So most of you are here looking at this because you want to build a massive business with us, and we want you to. And so you already have your brand. You already have your personal brand, your influencer brand, or your sales team brand. And what we want to do is provide you the weapons grade Fortune 100 level branding assets, collateral, guidelines, landing pages, and e-commerce tools for a $99 a year membership, so that you can unlock the comp plan in full and go to work helping us distribute this message to the masses, and where they can benefit from the same opportunity as you. And so reasons to believe would include the fact that we chose this model not because we wanted to be in direct selling or because it was the only way to sell it. We chose this model because you can't build a decentralized web, or Web 3 as it's called, and then go into Web 2 business models. It kind of violates the very thing. A decentralized web is about a bunch of independent actors coming together to create something solid that is sustainable and long going. And when you're going to move product through such a thing, it simply makes sense to create a business model innovation in a proven industry like direct selling, which is already 180 billion a year, where 52% of people are under age 44. Why not go peer to peer? Why not innovate and take what already is a massive industry with a person joining every 10 minutes somewhere in the globe under the age of 44 who's digitally native, and give them a new and better way to do it? And so that's why we chose the peer-to-peer business model, and that's why we've built the architectures to empower that for our decentralized marketing partners. But you'll be able to own your own encryption and provide other users the same thing. You'll be able to benefit from a decentralized app marketplace, where as those people continue to use it, just like you continue to use your Google Play or your iPhone right now and do in-app purchases, those revenue streams become residual income opportunities that compound over time. So not only are you getting paid compensation for bringing people into the network on the front end and for their subscription on whatever that is, but you're getting paid on the long tail of that relationship they have as the ecosystem becomes more and more rich, more and more developers join, and more opportunities to monetize happen. And so really this is choice combined with convenience for your end user, and an opportunity to get in front of $1 trillion remonetization as a builder. So what's shipping first? The Meta Zero will be coming out as a zero tax Surface phone. It solves a very specific need where someone wants a device where they are certain that the only person listening is the person on the other line, that the only one who can read the files is the person who is holding the phone and has the key. And that is you. It's the identity where only you actually have the identity. And so that identity takes possession of the device versus the device giving you an identity that it owns to take possession of you. It's a fundamental change in architecture and a fundamental change in utility. This is a very focused phone. It is focused on zero attack vector. And the reason is because there's a specific migration of habit that needs to occur as people start to realize that they need to move into a world where they own dominion back over their data and their encryption, and that creates new habits that they used to have, but they've long forgotten because Google and iPhone and everybody else has made it too easy to just be opted in to their inertia. And so the question that we also ask people is, do you really need a phone number? Because right now, we're watching this in somewhere around 20 countries, I think, based on the last data that we saw from last night, and none of you used a phone number to access this. So if we can talk face-to-face this way without a phone number, why do we need a phone number? And by the way, a phone number is our most vulnerable source of info security, because our phone number is connected to not only the telcos and everything else, the ultimate source of data, but over the last decade or 15 years, it's been the thing we've used to do everything from buy groceries to CVS stores to whatever you want to name to get gas discounts. And so that is then connected to a mobile device that is always on us and that has GPS location and accelerometers and a bunch of sensors and a microphone and a thing. And so literally what we do with the Meta SIM is what's called a dynamic IMSI. It is voice over IP that enables end-to-end encrypted peer-to-peer communication between the Meta Zero and another Meta Zero. It also creates connectivity without being on public Wi-Fi for when you're out and about in 180 countries, so that you can, without having a phone number, without having a contract, still roam on tower infrastructure 4G tower infrastructure that is out there so that you can make secure encrypted end-to-end calls from 180 countries without a problem, and that you can send email through that and chat through that in an encrypted way. And so plans start there from $9.99 a month, and they'll have bundles that go up for multiple lines somewhere in the 40 to 50, and you'll be able to earn commissions on that. We'll answer some clarifying questions that I know will come up in the questions if they do, related to the SIM slots and other things. Now, what we're building to, shipping late Q3, anticipated right now, is a custom phone that's in development right now with our ODM partner, an original design manufacturer partner that is a solution set that is creating us a hardware that works with our custom built dual OS. Now, the dual OS has two modes, lifestyle mode and zero mode. So the Meta Zero is running on Meta OS 1.0, which is basically the current version of a tested weapons grade OS that's been sold to governments and police forces and things like that for encrypted communications for the last 5 years. This is now a consumer version of it, which is the same core source code with decentralized ID and Cardano baked into it as a new proprietary one-of-a-kind stack that has never been on the market before, and you get to bring that to market. So this is truly a unique OS in the Meta Zero. The Meta Zero will be cannibalized essentially into the Meta One, meaning you're buying a Meta Zero and you're locking in your guaranteed place to get a Meta One the day it ships in line. So you're going to be the first ones to have the Meta One. And the dual OS will allow you to toggle between zero mode and lifestyle mode. Lifestyle mode will allow you to do all the things that you're used to doing right now, but with more security, with more control, with more say over the internet coming in and out of your phone through gateway management layers and other personalized ways to alter the terms and conditions or decide that you're willing to accept the terms and conditions of the third-party apps, but leave it at that and not have to worry about malware and other things. And so this will give you the one phone in your pocket that allows you to live your life and be open, and at the same time, live your life and be private without having to hold two things. And so more on that, but these will be shipping. These are being architected right now. The dual OS will be ready October 1st. And your Meta Zero purchase and your customer's purchase guarantees them a spot in line and also guarantees them a trade-in towards their Meta One when they do that. And we pay for the trade-in, and then we repurpose that fully wiped phone that the user wipes before they send it to us to someone in need and give them their first device for free as part of our social impact side. So how do you get paid? On anything you do, whether you're brand new or whether you're the top level of the company, it's equitable. There's no gimmicks. There's no breakage. There's nothing to unlock in this. When you get paid, there's a couple ways you get paid, but we'll talk about the commissions and the override structures first. On anything you do personally, you're going to earn 15%. On anything that you recruit, anything they do, they're going to get 15%. You're going to override 10%. So if I recruit Josh and Josh buys a phone, I'm making $109.35 in this example. But if Josh goes out and sells phones, he's making 15% on everybody he sells, and I'm overriding. So if he goes out and sells 1,000 phones, I'm going to make $72,000, right? So that's on my second tier, or on my first tier of recruit. So on my second tier of recruit, I'm going to override 5. So if those 1,000 people go out and do likewise, but don't do as good as him, I'm going to get 36,000 more when they sell 1 each. So just to illustrate the power of that, and then the residual income obviously ties to not only the SIM, but also other things that they will do like NFT drops and other things. Everything that will be sold from SDK is sold through our exclusive distribution company, which is SDK Meta, the company that you're hearing about right now. There are no other channels of distribution. We have chosen SDK Meta as the exclusive distribution arm for all SDK code technologies. And so whether that comes out of our culture division or our technology labs division, these things will be productized and packaged up and sold through people like yourself. Now, there's a bunch of bonuses because we wanted to align the field of tremendous leaders like yourself to not just worry about your own team and not feel like a competitive nature to go do all the stuff that sometimes happens when you have a simple unilevel kind of comp plan like that. And so we've put multiple bonus pools, and 15% of all revenue funds these. And you can get all the details of these specifically at marketing.mymetacloud.com. But I want to speak to kind of the power of it so that you understand what's in this. For instance, in the monthly rank bonus pool, across 3 levels of rank qualification, from the lowest level person who's starting to build early and small to the person who's going out and doing $1 million a month or more, we have 1.25% in 2 of those buckets at the higher end, and 1% of all global revenue as it grows in perpetuity in bonus pools. So you can imagine as the air gets thinner and as you advance, people like yourself, and you're at the top of that thing, 1.25% split amongst a handful of folks, right? When we're doing $1 billion in revenue, which only takes 1 million customers, right? That check alone becomes significant. And so on a theoretical example, if you did most of the building in depth, because a lot of you are networkers, if most of your building came in depth versus width in the beginning, but you could get yourself to $1 million a month in volume in a reasonable amount of time, you will be over $1 million a year earner in this example. Obviously, if you do that in width and in depth, that check gets even bigger, even faster. But just as a simple theoretical example, take a look at the details of it. They're fully in there at marketing.mymetacloud.com. Lastly, I want to talk about the Alpha Global Quarterly Bonus Pool, because this is something we specifically did for right now. This is not going to happen again. This is happening right now at the beginning during the alpha phase, which is for many of you what you would consider a soft launch phase. During the pre-enrollment period, there's 2 weeks to structure as fast and hard as you can. Then there's a week to convert, and then we're into full-on sprint. And it's a 60-day sprint. We anticipate right now will start somewhere right around August 15th. And should that be the case, it would end October 15th. The exact start date will be obviously disclosed, and the exact end date will be disclosed. And during that period, you and your organization, all you have to do is move 250 total meta zeros. If you move 250 meta zeros during that 60-day period, and you can count 125 of those phones from any one recruit that you have, but you have to get 24 people who want to build a business with you sometime, full-time, part-time, right? 24 people that come in and join you as personal recruits. And that's checkbox one. And then through that organization, you have to move 250 total meta zeros. But you can take up to 125 of those meta zeros and count them off of one leg. You get 100% of your own volume. So if you go out and sell 250 phones yourself, then you're qualified. But if you do it with a team structure, you can count 125. And what that's going to be worth is a share of 2% of global company product sales forever. And that is something that will not be opened again. This will not be a pool that gets diluted. This is not a pool that in North America or the EU will ever be open again. Those are the 2 launch markets we have right now. And so if you're in the EU, you're in the UK, or you're in America and you are building, right, customers in that group, this is the window to get in that pool. And that 2% global pool will never be diluted after that. So where do you get some details? Certainly stay connected with us on the Telegram at telegram.mymetacloud.com is the short link to get there on August 2nd. And you want to RSVP for this immediately, if not sooner. And you want to get everybody that you know to do this, because these seats are limited and they will sell out. There's nothing to buy, but they will fill up. So alpha.mymetacloud.com, please just go there right now. It's a name, an email, and who referred you. That's all you need to put in there. And that's all they need to put in there.
Chris, I've got the biggest question that's coming at me nonstop is when do I get an enrollment link? When do I get started? How do I sign up? And you know, those enrollment links will be available on Monday. And some of your leadership will have links within, I think, 24 hours before launch, right, Chris?
I looked at it. So I was on with Larry Beck, our EVP of InfoSec and IT today. We're going through the pre-enrollment meta manager back office and portal and making some final tweaks. I'm smiling because like I'm just fired up, man. I'm just like it's so real. It's so close. I feel your anticipation, guys. Yes, it's coming, and it's it's going to be hot. And so the sites are looking great. The white paper, my gosh, Rich Kopjo and Jeffrey, holy smokes, what they did with Tall Wave on this white paper, but Rich specifically, the last 48 hours has gone in and just made this thing impeccably beautiful, and all the detail that's in it. I mean, it is a weapon.
When do you anticipate that'll be out, Chris?
Well, it's literally on the sign-off list of stuff for today. So
Excellent.
We're going to have a founders talk, and we'll decide whether we want
to. Can you do this for a lot of people that they're not really familiar with the term outside of the crypto community? I mean, obviously it's a term within the tech, within the investment community, but that's a small sector of people as well as the crypto community. So could you explain what a white paper is?
Sure, absolutely. And so, in the world of technology or because it's not just crypto is kind of what made it more popular, I think. But in the world of technology, there's white papers, there's beige papers, there's I think yellow papers, sometimes there's green papers. They mean different things, right? But essentially what a white paper is it's like, well, what's under the hood? I mean, that's the layman's person's version of like, what's under the hood? Like, so tell me about your product. Like, it's more than just the specs, right? The specs are, it's a 48 megapixel camera and it's a MediaTek or a, whatever chipset and da-da-da. The white paper is like the thinking and the architecture and the systems design and the infrastructure. And so when you have customers or you have DMPs that are going to want to know, like, hey, is this just something that these guys white labeled off of Alibaba or AliExpress and that they're slapping a cool logo on and selling to the field? The white paper is going to nail that down over the head, right? So it's the weapon that goes, I don't think so. Check this out, right? So in layman's terms, just think about it as like a detailed look under the hood, without it being insultingly overly technical so that a human can't read it. So a beige paper is kind of like where only people like Larry Beck know what it means, and I got to ask him. A white paper is where we could read it, and yet it's also deep enough to kind of be technical, if that makes sense, Josh. So will I keep my phone number, Peter? Yeah, and I'm glad for these questions too. They come up a bunch, and I appreciate for all the new folks that you haven't seen, the whatever we've done now, 15 of these in the last couple of days, because they're a little different each time, but some of the questions recur. So when it comes to the Meta Zero, the Meta Zero has intentionally been locked to only work with a Meta SIM, and there's a reason for that. It is a zero attack surface. So there's a couple things that you cannot have and have a zero attack surface. One of those things is you can't have a web browser. And the reason why is obvious, right? If it's not obvious, it's an easy source of vulnerability for both malware and whatever. The other thing you can't have is you can't have a normal SIM card that most of you would think about when you think about a SIM card with a 10-digit number, because basically if you have one of those, then you're vulnerable at the worst case level through something like Pegasus, if you were important enough for a government to spend $1 million and run a zero-click attack on, which means they don't even have to, all they have to do is know your number, and they can send something to it, and you don't have to answer to even see it, and it takes over possession of your phone, your camera, and you never even know. And so those points of vulnerability cannot exist and have what we call a zero-attack phone. Now, caveat, by having third-party applications in there like Signal and Telegram in a containerized tray, which we have chosen to do, technically we take it from zero vulnerability to some small level of vulnerability. But what we did was we put a separate level of containers in the private LT network and server systems that only work with those third-party apps. So if Signal or Telegram was ever to be hacked, it would hack Signal or Telegram, but it would not get to the vault. It would not get to your other PGP email. It would not get to your Meta containers. And so it's a zero attack phone if you don't use the third-party apps. If you do use the third-party apps, it is a like 99.8% zero attack phone. But the Meta SIM works as a global voice over IP SIM that's a dynamic IMSI, which allows you to switch between networks. And the main purpose of that is that if you're behind your own Wi-Fi or firewall or VPN, then you can make calls and you can send video chat, and you can do that through the Meta Zero for free, right? Because you're on Wi-Fi, or whatever feels like free because you're paying for the Wi-Fi separately, and do it securely. But you would never want to go on public Wi-Fi and do it. And so how do you talk when you're in public? Well, that's what the Meta SIM allows you to do.
And Chris, that's a great segue into the next question there, which Jeff is asking about.
Yeah.
About the phone number, which I know you answered, at least
it's
there's
a great
maybe a
question.
different answer for that specific question, but also paying double. He's put a great question out there. I'd love for you to answer that.
It's a great question, and it's a great clarification point. So the answer is this, that privacy and security will cost you more, right? Now, that may not be true over time, right? Because we don't know what the price of data and text and voice is going to be. What I can tell you is that there's a couple reasons why we chose not to get in personally into the SIM card business. One is all we could do is be an MVNO, which for those who don't know what that means, it just means that you're always going to be subject to the cartel of AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, which owns basically everybody else now. And so no matter what, you could go build a subscriber base, But at the end of the day, your last mile is one of those three. And so they could change the rules on you at any time. And then you got to go answer your subscriber base. And as you've seen, data and voice and text have just continued to get cheaper, right? Unlimited is now $30 or $40 a month. I don't even know what it is for most of those things. And it's what we call a race to the bottom. And so that's one business. And that's a great business. And we need that business as humans for utility for at least a little while longer. But the reality is that's not a business we need to be in. And that's not a commodity business you want to be in. But the answer to that is the Meta One will have, and both phones have dual SIM. Now the Meta One has dual SIM. And so what'll happen is you'll take whoever you choose, whoever you're with right now for that connectivity, if you choose to still have that, which most people will for obvious reasons, and you will put that in the lifestyle SIM. So you'll take your Verizon, your Deutsche, your whatever, whoever you currently have, and you'll put it in there. Now in certain markets, especially in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, EMEA as it's known, we are working on partnerships with a company that I can't announce yet because they're not finalized, but they are underway, and they are also a partner on Cardano that is building unlicensed spectrum and mesh networks all across Africa and in parts of the Middle East and Europe. And for customers in those areas, we likely will have a Meta SIM subscription that would replace whoever their other telco is and have a better solution because it'll be part of a node network where every subscriber on that is actually maintaining the spectrum versus being part of one of the cartel spectrum. Specifically in those regions, the reason why it's happening and competitive is because the telcos have no financial incentive to connect those 4 billion people on the planet because it's too expensive with too little ROI for them in their current model to build towers. And these guys have solved that with their mesh network and satellites and buying unlicensed spectrum from the governments. So there's some really cool innovative stuff that'll be happening in the third world where we probably will get in the SIM card game. But for you in the first world, you're just going to take whoever you have, pop it into lifestyle SIM because that level of vulnerability is going to be there whether we sell you the SIM card or not. But at least if you're buying it from whoever you're buying it from, you're not going to get screwed because they're not going to undercut themselves, right? And so for us in the lifestyle mode, you'll be able to use whoever you have. And then what you would add to Jeff's question is in your zero mode, you'd want the Meta SIM. But you're only going to need the Meta SIM when you're doing zero communication. So at a minimum, you're talking about $10 a month. I mean, for that level of security, and then you could top up if you need more. It's very reasonable. It's not gonna you're not gonna feel it, and more than likely, you're probably gonna get that in that race to the bottom savings because the other guys are just gonna keep going lower. So that's a great question, though. I hope I answered it.
Yeah, if there's more clarity, Jeff, go ahead. If you need more clarity, put it in the box there. And then Angel had a good question there.
Yes, Angel. So again, I want to. A lot of you guys are pros, and so you'll know what this means. And some of you, may not want all the details. So as we've moved through these webinars, I've kind of give more of theoretical stuff, not to skip over the getting in the weeds on the comp plan and the architecture of it, but just for the bulk of the group that may be on here that goes, I want to understand like how much can I make if I put in how much And so, we showed you kind of a median low end example of someone who builds a $12 million a year revenue business with us over a period of time, which most of you obviously would smash, but certainly are capable of, or you wouldn't be on these calls at this point in time, is going to be earning, in excess of $80,000 a month based on a simple theoretical, but kind of median example where most of that happened. And because of the way that we've architected the monthly rank and the personal producer and the differential global bonus pools, what happens is you're making at the top level, you're making about a 5.5% additional override on infinite depth until you establish a first generation leader. And then it goes down 50 basis points until they match you. But once they match you, or if they pass you, we've also created, and this has never been done that I'm aware of anywhere in the direct sales industry, we've created an upward looking differential that literally allows someone who passes you to still have incentive to go mine their customer grid so that you can not only catch up, but you can earn money working in depth if they're not someone who's inclined to, which is going to be most of the influencers that you might also personally recruit, because influencers are used to going wide. They're used to doing tweets and getting a lot of volume in a hurry or a lot of eyeballs in a hurry. And so their residual income is going to be massive and their front end is going to be massive, and you're going to override that in the unilevel if you recruited them. But if someone deep to you recruited them, what's your incentive as a leader to go cultivate that field? Because if someone goes 10,000 wide 15 layers below you, yeah, you're not picking it up in the unilevel, but you're going to pick up 50% of that volume credit towards your own rank advancement. And once you do that, if it's a big enough rank advancement, which most that certainly would have been, then you now are picking up 50 basis points to a basis point, or I'm sorry, to a full point, to a point and a half, to 2 points as you catch up on someone who's out of your depth. And so I think as you read through the details, you really understand the power of this. You know, we understand that most of the gold is found deep underground. And so a unilevel solves one aspect of it and keeps it a really simple comp plan that influencers don't have to get confused by and direct sellers don't have to get confused by, and that's super compliant and legal. But the bonus pools and the differentials allow for networkers to do what they're really great at and especially unique at, which is mine and harvest deep. And so we think we've struck a balance that we're really excited about. And I really encourage you to kind of read through that document and ask some more detailed questions. And again, you know, Jeff picking it up. Yes. So this goes back to the higher level purpose. I want you guys to understand how important all of us are in this equation, right? Because we live inside of an ecosystem and an architecture that has a lot of inertia. And Web 1 became Web 2. And Jeff's thing about, I just did a medical lab test. If I don't put in a phone number, they won't provide me the services. And we've all had this happen, right? I mean, I went and returned something at a store recently. I can't even remember what it was, like Janie and Jack or something that somebody bought our son, and I returned it. And they asked me for my driver's license for returning something for like 20 bucks. I was like, what do you need my license for? Right? I'm returning a product I don't want to your store. You don't need my ID. But, you know, the person behind the counter has been told collect their ID. Now, for whatever reason they want that or need that, they ask. And they said, show me the law where I have to give you my ID to give you back your product that I don't want. I didn't mean, okay, well, so I don't have to do it? No, I don't have to do it. Now, you're going to run into that where you do have to do it. So again, not to get in arguments every step of the way, just understand that we have gotten into this crazy world where, like, if you're 21 and you can't enter a place if you're 21, we don't have a way to identify ourselves without giving up our name, our address, our email, our firstborn, or whatever. And all they need to know is we're 21 so that we can legally enter. So what having a decentralized meta ID over time, and I say over time because it's not going to happen overnight, but as you and I work together, and as we all work together to build a crowd, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million deep, we start to create an economy that values identity, but verifies off of only the credential that is needed and not just data for data's sake. And so until that happens, yes, you're going to live between these two worlds. And we've created a dual OS that allow you to live between those two worlds, right? But in the current world, you're not probably going to be able to get away with getting that medical lab test without giving an ID or a phone number. So give them your phone number. Just know that that phone number is now walled off from your other private communications, your private file storage on one device when the Meta 1 comes out. And until the Meta 1 comes out, you have the Meta 0 to keep those things separate. That's a great question, by the way. Is Estonia among the 180 countries where this is going to be available? Yes, Estonia is in the EU. I actually lived in Estonia in the summer of 2018. Love the country. I have a dear family friend that is out there. They're doing some incredible things. As many of you know, with e-residency, they were one of the forefront to do that. And so they're a very blockchain friendly small country. Actually, Jeff, who was just asking those other questions, Jeff and I, Burton, have a deep love for the Baltics. He's the one who brought us to Lithuania back in 2018 to do a block forum out there. There's tremendous things happening in that ecosystem across Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania, and it's part of our European Union focus. So, you know, not only will you be able to present this opportunity to people in those countries, but they'll also be able to use the Meta 0. And actually, all the phones are built in Europe, and so our operating system team is in Eastern Europe, and our offices are in Eastern Europe for where that technical team and that technical support team is. We've got about 45 developers there. We're adding 5 more this coming month, and so you know, Estonia, absolutely not a problem. If you know people there, love to meet them and get them involved. And Tallinn's one of my favorite cities, at least when it's warm. So, good question. Other questions that are open? Let's see. Okay, good, Jeff. Thanks. I'm glad I answered it. All right, we're nearing the top of the hour. Burke Hedges, how financially stable are you? Good question. So we closed a round of a little bit over $2.5 million last month. One of our investors is a $300 million publicly traded company in the DeFi space. We have a healthy balance sheet, and we're entertaining more offers right now, but we think we can get to revenue and kind of wait and bide our time. So very good question. Certainly with the growth that we think you guys are going to do, we have to be thoughtful about it, because the reality is the capabilities that are on this phone could break almost any company. And so again, part of how we're doing this in alpha phase and beta phase is to meet and manage the unprecedented demand and the skill set and the appetite of people like yourselves with the ability to scale into it. So I really appreciate your question, Burke, because it's something that we think about all the time. And when we come down the pike with certain decisions or certain things to the field that we ask you, it is based on us making sure that as we scale into that customer demand, which we know is exponential, we know that you can go do far more faster than possible, that we're measuring that in a way that allows us to scale into our hyper growth without breaking ourselves on the way up. And so it'll be a symbiotic relationship. We'll work diligently to keep you in the loop and communicate with those constraints and those opportunities. And we'll ask that you kind of understand that what we're doing on some of the digital side too, some of the digital products and the NFTs are not just about rounding out the power of the top-down ecosystem. So the bottom-up way is we put devices with operating system and new architecture in people's hands. We give them a meta ID, and then we expand the value of that ID over time. That's kind of the bottom-up strategy. You get paid to help do that. The top-down strategy is then we drop an album drop or a documentary release or something in an NFT world that can be consumed and resold, and we drop that on the top and you monetize that, and that infinitely scales, because outside of what we program in is scarcity, there's no cost of goods, there's no supply chain to worry about there, and there's some things that can keep the army fed while we grow through any of the growing pains we have on the Meta 1 and on the Meta 0 at scale. And so
and Chris, I'll just add in on that too. But there's no shortage of cash that's trying to be thrown at us at this moment. So the good news is that there's a tremendous amount of capital that's in the wings, so to speak. That's hoping to be deployed with us. Our goal and our job, as Chris just mentioned, is to make sure that we're taking in only what we need for when we need it and how we need it to be able to be as effective and as lean as we can be, and at the same time, keep it as much of this as possible. But the good news is, we've definitely struck a nerve. We're in the right place at the right time on both sides of this fence. So I'm really excited about that. I want to hit this question here. And by the way, thank you for asking that, Burke. That's a very smart question to ask. Jerry's asking about the DeFi utility token. Are you still planning on using? There is an architecture. Rich and Josh and I have started the process on a foundation side that will be an open meta foundation. It's been formed in Grand Cayman. We are working through what's called the VASP, Virtual Asset Service Provider regulatory environment in Grand Cayman. They are one of the only and first destinations that actually has a clear regulatory framework for an IDO, and also there's a lot of other benefits there. But it's a great place for IP, and it's a great place for the Open Meta Foundation to exist. The Open Meta Foundation would be analogous to SDK as Cardano is to IOHK, for those who are familiar with that. But so it would be something that we don't control at arm's length. There is a plan on that. It is on the roadmap. There are no hard dates as far as the exact timing on that, but it's underway. And the reason we would
do that, and what the token would likely be is a rewards utility token. So when we talked about preferred customer, right, what we're talking about is someone who basically buys the stuff and is a customer. They have not yet, for any number of reasons, chosen to be a decentralized marketing partner. However, we're going to give them a link, right? We're going to give every customer a link to organically drive referrals that they could get credit for. Well, they're going to earn right now 15% in what we call meta rewards. And that rewards is just going to be a credit on their account. The vision that we have is to take the Sandcastle Startups Challenge and these things that we've been doing since 2018 that cultivate developer ecosystems and give away prize money. We give away $25,000 right now every single September during WYO Hackathon and Wyoming Blockchain Stampede, which is coming up in another month and a half, to technology startups that are in the blockchain and space, in crypto space. And ultimately, what we're doing with this is we're merging these things into the foundation so that we can give away $250,000 or $1 million a year, starting in Dubai during the launch, for companies that will be building dApps that ultimately will be native to or built specifically for the Meta OS ecosystem and the My Meta Shop ecosystem. So, so there is a plan for that. There's a really integrated vision to how that effort will support the ecosystem. The tokenomics are being thought through and built out. The white papers are being thought through and built out. Most importantly, the compliance stuff is being handled first. And so, you know, again, as a decentralized marketing partner, you will be in the know, and you'll be the first to know when and how those things become a reality. But at a high level right now, conceptually, without speaking too much more about it and setting any missed expectations, the notion is that we definitely see a value and a need to create a token architecture around the rewards and the utility of meta rewards, and adding that into a mix, and then specifically activating communities and developer communities and also users in that community to vote and kind of discover or give feedback to the application environment that can be native to the OS as it scales. So
yeah, I want to mention something, Chris, on this, because I think it's important as marketers, because you're all coming in to potentially be high level marketers within the organization. And we want to have a rewards program for customers. Compliant wise, you can't pay them, right? So without them being a distributor, because there's a bunch of compliance around that. So having a rewards token, having a way to be able to compensate the consumer is vitally important for a variety of reasons. But you think of it like your airline miles or your hotel points. You know, it's going to be something similar to that, where a consumer is excited to share, they get incentive to share. There's something that they get in return for doing so they're more likely to do it and do it often. However, as the agent or the point of sale, you're the person who actually made that happen. Say in this hypothetical example, I'm your customer. You shared it with me. I got excited. I bought the program. You made your 15 points and so forth and so on, was paid out. However, I have my friend Kyle, and I share it with him because I'm excited about it. I'm not a distributor. I'm not making money, but I get points for bringing him on. You, as the person who sold me the plan, or someone who referred it to me, as the decentralized marketing partner, you got paid that 15%. So every time I'm doing that, I'm incentivized. So you're excited that we have this. You're excited that the customers have an incentive for them, but you also have an incentive, because every time I go and do that, as a customer, I'm doing it for my points. You're getting the real commissions. You're getting the money. So, and the residuals that follow.
Yeah, and it gives us a good way. And again, we'll talk more about that as it rolls out more formally. And obviously, the comp plan documentation will be updated effectively once that's in reality. But everything conceptually that Josh has said and that we're saying is kind of where we're heading with this. And as a marketer, it's and as a partner of ours, you know, we're going to ask that your enthusiasm. I'm going to say it this way: there's enough meat on this bone in its current state that as you invest the time into these webinars, these pre-alpha webinars, what we're trying to do is give you more and more detail each time, more and better answers to your better and better questions each time, because this is about expectations. Right? This is not about hype. This is a marathon that we will run in daily and weekly and quarterly sprints together. But this is a marathon, and it is a very well-paying marathon for those of you who need to get big, quick money in a hurry as we turn on the first phase of this and as we start to sell them at a zero. But if you can really do me a favor and do us a favor and just ask the questions to really try and understand where we're going and how fast we're going certain places and how long it might take us to go other places, it'll align us all in ways that really keeps the integrity of what we've built intact without limiting your ability to monetize this in massive ways as we grow up. But this is not something, that we're doing to flash in the pan or go capture a niche in the market or whatever, right? I mean, this is 22 years of my life and all of a sudden making sense in my entrepreneurial career. And Josh and I have known each other for almost 22 years, but we really got close, 12 or 13 years ago, and we've never worked together before. And I've always wanted to. Rich and I have known each other for over a decade. We've worked together in our venture studio for the last couple of years, but we've never had a business that we could build together. Jeff and all the other people that are on the executive team, I've never had something that could handle them or beat. And so this is something that we're all doing as a legacy play together. And we see you as part of that. And I just ask that I'll give every ounce of the best and real answers we can. And I know Josh will do the same and the rest of the team will do the same. But please invest and continue to invest, because many of you have. I don't want to insult what you've already given. Please invest the time to really understand what we're doing, because it's your opportunity. And we want to preserve it and cultivate it and maximize it with you.
In other words, we want to make sure we set our expectations properly for people. Right? We don't want to overpromise anything. We're not going to be a company that overpromises and underdelivers. The goal here is to set proper expectations, deliver something to the marketplace that we know people inherently need and want. And that's where the marketplace is moving anyway. We're going to just jump ahead of it. And then all these things are going to be coming out, and we're going to be very clear with our communication. We're not going to keep anyone in the dark. We'll make certain that you know exactly what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it as we move forward. It's important to be on the Telegram thread. If you're not already, please subscribe to the Telegram channel so you get the information. After Monday, we're going to be putting groups together and different things where we can communicate with one another in real time, because we're going to start moving very quickly. A lot of things are going to be enhanced and shift as we shift gears here from alpha, this pre-alpha, pre-enrollment to enrollment alpha, and we start moving into the point where we're actually able to start taking applications, where we start enrolling people. And then from that point, once we're able to start accepting fees, accepting distributor fees, then from that point, we're moving to where we can accept deposits on phones. So, there's going to be very clear benchmarks and an understanding what that looks like and what to do in between these times. The kind of think of it as like, I used to run a lot, and what got me running, I could run, 10, 15 miles and at a time. And I would always look at light poles, the next light pole. I'd set that goal close to me, because if it sat too far out, I wouldn't do it. So, we're going to be pushing these light poles, it's right here. It's going to be a quick sprint. It's going to be a run where we can get there, and then we'll readjust that goal and we'll keep moving that. And then if you roll with us, I think that every one of us, anyone who does, I think is going to have an extraordinary future ahead of you. Certainly, I think the financial opportunities that we presented will be in abundance. So I'm excited about this, Chris. I'm going to jump off. We got a lot of calls lined up. If I'm you right now, start getting that list together, start making the phone calls, start promoting into that 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard webinar that we're going to be doing. Chris, they just keep getting better, buddy, doing an incredible job. This was, I think, one of the best by far. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
Questions, and I see a bunch of new names there. Please come back and bring somebody else in a couple hours, and hear it again. It'll be a little different. It'll be more of the same, and you'll get more. And so we appreciate you. We got 5 left, Josh. 5 left.
Hey, yes. The last question was the Telegram group. What's the Telegram group one more time for people? It's
just go telegram.mymetacloud.com. It'll take you right there. So just go on your phone, type in telegram.mymetacloud.com. It'll open your Telegram app, and it'll take you right to the link.
mymetacloud.com after
Yeah,
Telegram.
telegram.mymetacloud.com. Yep.
Perfect. Thanks,
All right,
guys.
guys.
Much
See you later.
love.